The old house stood sentinel against the bruised twilight sky, a jagged silhouette of decaying grandeur. Its bones were visible through the tattered skin of peeling paint and crumbling brick, a grotesque anatomy lesson in neglect. They called it Blackwood Manor, a name whispered with a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity in the nearby village of Hollow Creek. I, a ghost hunter named Arthur Finch, had traveled to Hollow Creek seeking Blackwood Manor. My reputation hinged on unraveling the mysteries that clung to haunted places like cobwebs. Blackwood Manor was said to be the epicenter of paranormal activity in the region, a place where the veil between worlds was thin and restless spirits roamed freely. My taxi lurched to a halt at the end of the long, overgrown driveway. The driver, a wizened man with eyes that held the deep shadows of the forest, refused to go any further. He muttered something about bad omens and the Blackwood curse before speeding away, leaving me alone with the encroaching darkness and the oppressive presence of the house. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and something else, something indefinably unpleasant that prickled at my nostrils. The silence was profound, broken only by the rustling of unseen things in the undergrowth and the creaking groan of the ancient trees that clawed at the sky like skeletal fingers. I pulled my battered suitcase from the trunk, the leather cold and damp against my gloved hand. Inside, nestled among my clothes, were my tools, a digital recorder, an EMF meter, a thermal camera, and a well-worn copy of the Necronomicon, a book I consulted more for its historical context than its supposed magical properties. As I walked up the driveway, the house seemed to grow larger, its decaying facade looming over me like a malevolent giant. The windows were dark and empty, like vacant eyes staring into my soul. I reached the front door, a massive oak slab studded with rusted iron. The wood was warped and cracked, and the ironwork was twisted into grotesque shapes that seemed to writhe in the fading light. A heavy, tarnished brass knocker in the shape of a snarling wolf's head hung limply from the door. Hesitantly, I reached out and rapped 3 times. The sound echoed through the stillness, a hollow, unsettling thump that reverberated in my chest. I waited, my breath misting in the cool air. Silence. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. With a sigh, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a set of lockpicks. I wasn't proud of breaking and entering, but time was of the essence and I doubted anyone would be answering the door. The lock was old and simple, and after a few minutes of fumbling, I heard a satisfying click. The heavy door creaked inward, revealing a cavernous entrance hall shrouded in shadow. The air inside was even colder and damper than outside, and the unpleasant smell was stronger, almost suffocating. I stepped inside, pulling a flashlight from my pocket. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air and cobwebs thick as shrouds. The entrance hall was vast, with a high, vaulted ceiling and walls lined with peeling wallpaper depicting scenes of pastoral landscapes. A grand staircase swept upwards, disappearing into the gloom of the upper floors. The house had been beautiful once, undeniably. Now, it was a decaying monument to a bygone era, a testament to the ravages of time and the destructive power of neglect. But it was more than just neglected, it felt tainted. As if some dark force had seeped into its very foundations, poisoning everything it touched. I took a deep breath and began my exploration. I started in the library, a room lined with towering bookshelves filled with decaying volumes. The air here was thick with the smell of mildew and decaying paper. Many of the books were damaged, their pages brittle and crumbling to dust. I ran my hand along the spines, reading titles that hinted at forbidden knowledge and long-forgotten secrets, demonology and witchcraft, the Book of Shadows, occult philosophy. As I examined the shelves, I noticed something odd. One of the books was out of place, lying open on a small table in the corner. It was a journal, bound in cracked leather and filled with spidery handwriting. I picked it up carefully and began to read. The journal belonged to a man named Elias Blackwood, the last known resident of the manor. The entries chronicled his descent into madness, his obsession with the occult, and his increasingly desperate attempts to contact the spirit world. He wrote of rituals performed in the dead of night, of chanting in forgotten languages, of summoning entities from the darkness. The more I read, the more uneasy I felt. Elias Blackwood's obsession was palpable, his madness contagious. He described encounters with shadowy figures, whispers from the other side, and visions of unimaginable horror. One entry stood out in particular. It described a ritual that Elias Blackwood had performed in the manor's cellar, a ritual designed to open a gateway to another dimension. He claimed that the ritual had been successful, that he had indeed opened a doorway to the spirit world. But he also warned of the consequences, of the dark forces that had been unleashed by his actions. "I have opened a door that cannot be closed," he wrote. "I have unleashed a darkness that will consume us all." A chill ran down my spine. I closed the journal with a snap and placed it back on the table. I needed to see the cellar. I moved toward the doorway. As I did, I heard a faint sound from behind me. A rustling, a scraping, as if something was moving among the bookshelves. I turned around, my flashlight beam dancing nervously across the shelves. Nothing. I held my breath, listening intently. The sound came again, closer this time. It was definitely coming from the bookshelves. Slowly, cautiously, I approached the shelves. I scanned the rows of books, trying to see what was making the noise. Then, I saw it. A book, a large, heavy tome bound in black leather, was slowly sliding off the shelf. I reached out to catch it, but it was too late. The book tumbled to the floor with a loud thud, sending up a cloud of dust. As I knelt to pick it up, I noticed something on the floor beneath the bookshelf. A dark stain, a patch of dried blood. It was old, but the crimson hue was still visible in the flashlight beam. A wave of nausea washed over me. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest. I had to get out of this room. I turned and fled, stumbling through the doorway and into the hallway. I didn't stop running until I reached the staircase. I took the stairs two at a time, desperate to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the library. I reached the second floor, panting and breathless. The hallway stretched before me, lined with closed doors. Each door seemed to emanate an aura of menace, a silent invitation to enter and confront the horrors that lay within. I decided to check the bedrooms first. I opened the first door I came to and stepped inside. The room was a boudoir, frozen in time. A four-poster bed draped with faded velvet curtains dominated the room. A dressing table cluttered with antique perfume bottles and tarnished jewelry stood against one wall. The air was thick with the scent of lavender and dust. As I scanned the room, I noticed something odd. A rocking chair stood in the corner, facing the window. It was rocking gently back and forth, as if someone had just gotten out of it. I stared at the chair, my blood running cold. There was no breeze in the room, no draft that could be causing it to move. It was rocking on its own, a silent, spectral dance. I backed away slowly, my eyes fixed on the chair. I reached the doorway and fled, slamming the door shut behind me. I didn't stop to think. I just kept moving, opening doors, and peering into the rooms beyond. Each room was more disturbing than the last. A nursery with a broken crib and a blood-stained teddy bear. A study with a desk covered in occult symbols and a human skull. A bathroom with a tub filled with murky water and a razor blade lying on the floor. Each room was a tableau of horror, a snapshot of the madness that had consumed Blackwood Manor. Finally, I reached the end of the hallway. There was only one door left, a large, imposing door made of dark wood. It was different from the other doors, more ornate, more sinister. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the doorknob. I knew, instinctively, that whatever lay behind this door was something terrible, something that I was not prepared to face. But I couldn't turn back. I had come too far. I had to see what was behind this door. I took a deep breath and grasped the doorknob. It was cold and smooth beneath my fingers. I turned it slowly, and the door creaked open. The room beyond was circular, with a high, domed ceiling. The walls were lined with mirrors, each reflecting the room back upon itself in an endless, distorted reflection. In the center of the room stood a single object, a large, ornate mirror, much larger than the others. It was framed in blackwood and inlaid with silver. I stepped into the room, my flashlight beam dancing across the mirrors. The reflections were disorienting, creating a sense of unease and claustrophobia. I approached the large mirror in the center of the room. As I got closer, I noticed something strange about it. The glass was not reflective. It was opaque, like a black void. I reached out and touched the glass. It was cold and smooth, like polished stone. As I touched it, I felt a strange sensation, a tingling in my fingertips that spread through my body like an electric shock. Suddenly, the room began to spin. The mirrors blurred, the walls seemed to close in on me. I felt dizzy and nauseous. Then, the black mirror began to glow. A faint, ethereal light emanated from its depths, illuminating the room with an otherworldly glow. As I stared into the mirror, I saw something move within its depths. A figure, a shadowy silhouette, began to materialize in the glass. The figure grew larger, more distinct. It was a woman, tall and slender, with long black hair and piercing eyes. She was dressed in a black gown, her face pale and gaunt. As she stepped out of the mirror, I recognized her. It was a portrait of her hanging in the main hallway. It was Elisa Blackwood, Elias Blackwood's wife, who was believed to have died mysteriously within these walls. Her eyes locked with mine, and a wave of terror washed over me. She smiled, a slow, chilling smile that revealed teeth that were too long, too sharp. "Welcome, Arthur," she said, her voice a whisper that seemed to echo from the depths of my soul. "I've been waiting for you." I tried to speak, but no words would come. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to move, unable to scream. Elisa Blackwood glided towards me, her movements graceful and ethereal. As she got closer, I could see the details of her face, the hollow cheeks, the sunken eyes, the lines of madness etched into her skin. "You came here seeking answers," she said, her voice a seductive caress. "But some doors are best left unopened. Some secrets are best left buried." She reached out and touched my face, her fingers cold and clammy against my skin. I shuddered, a jolt of revulsion running through me. "You want to know what happened here, don't you?" she whispered. "You want to know the truth about Blackwood Manor?" I nodded, my eyes wide with fear. "Very well," she said. "I will show you the truth." She placed her hand on my forehead, and a flood of images washed over me. I saw the history of Blackwood Manor, the story of the Blackwood family, the secrets and sins that had been hidden within these walls. I saw Elias Blackwood, his descent into madness, his obsession with the occult. I saw his rituals, his chanting, his summoning of dark forces. I saw Elisa Blackwood, his wife, her growing fear, her desperate attempts to stop him. I saw her locked away in this very room, driven to madness by her husband's experiments. And then, I saw the truth about her death. It wasn't a mystery. It was a ritual, a sacrifice. Elias Blackwood had killed his wife, using her life force to open a gateway to another dimension. The images intensified, becoming more vivid, more real. I felt Elisa Blackwood's pain, her fear, her despair. I experienced her death, her soul ripped from her body, her essence trapped within the walls of Blackwood Manor. Then, the images stopped. Elisa Blackwood removed her hand from my forehead. "Now you know the truth," she said, her voice cold and triumphant. "Now you know what it means to be trapped here, to be bound to this place for eternity." She smiled again, her eyes gleaming with malevolent glee. "And now," she said, "you will join me." She reached out and grabbed my arm, her grip like ice. She began to pull me towards the black mirror. I struggled, but her grip was too strong. I couldn't break free. She pulled me closer and closer to the mirror. I could feel its coldness radiating outwards, enveloping me in its icy embrace. As I stared into the mirror, I saw my own reflection. But it was not my reflection. It was a distorted, grotesque image, a caricature of my own face, twisted into a mask of terror. Then, the reflection began to change. It morphed, transformed, becoming more and more like Elisa Blackwood. I realized what was happening. She was trying to pull me into the mirror, to trap my soul within its depths, to make me one of her spectral prisoners. I screamed, a desperate, primal scream that echoed through the house. I thrashed and struggled, fighting with all my might. But it was no use. Her grip was too strong. I was being pulled into the mirror, my body dissolving, my essence fading away. Just as I was about to be completely absorbed, I remembered something. The Necronomicon, the book I had brought with me. It was in my suitcase, downstairs. I focused my thoughts, summoning all my willpower. I pictured the book in my mind, its worn leather cover, its yellowed pages filled with forbidden knowledge. I chanted a prayer, a Latin incantation that I had learned from the book. It was a banishment ritual, a spell designed to repel evil spirits. As I chanted, I felt a surge of power coursing through my veins. The black mirror shuddered, the room began to shake. Elisa Blackwood screamed, her grip weakening. I managed to break free, stumbling backwards away from the mirror. I didn't stop to look back. I turned and fled, running out of the room, down the stairs, and out of the house. I didn't stop running until I reached the end of the driveway. I collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath, my body trembling with exhaustion and fear. I looked back at Blackwood Manor. It stood silent and still in the darkness, its windows like empty eyes staring into the night. I knew that I had escaped, but I also knew that I would never be the same. I had seen the darkness, I had felt its touch, and it would forever be a part of me. I crawled to my feet and stumbled down the road, away from Blackwood Manor, away from Hollow Creek, away from the darkness that had almost consumed me. I returned to my hotel, shaken and exhausted. I spent the night tossing and turning, haunted by visions of Elisa Blackwood and the Black Mirror. The next morning, I packed my bags and left Hollow Creek. I never looked back. Years passed. I tried to forget about Blackwood Manor, to bury the memories of that night deep within my subconscious. But it was no use. The darkness lingered, a shadow that followed me wherever I went. I continued my work as a ghost hunter, but something had changed. I was no longer driven by curiosity or a desire to unravel mysteries. I was driven by fear, by a desperate need to understand the forces that I had encountered at Blackwood Manor. One day, I received a letter. It was postmarked Hollow Creek. My heart sank as I recognized the return address. I opened the letter with trembling hands. It was from the wizened taxi driver who had dropped me off at Blackwood Manor. He wrote of strange occurrences in Hollow Creek, of dark shadows and chilling whispers. He said that Blackwood Manor was growing stronger, that its influence was spreading throughout the village. He ended the letter with a plea, "You are the only one who can stop it. You must return to Blackwood Manor and destroy the evil that resides there." I knew that I couldn't ignore his plea. I knew that I had to return to Blackwood Manor, to confront the darkness that I had tried so hard to forget. I packed my bags once again, my heart filled with dread. I knew that this time, there might be no escape. As I drove back to Hollow Creek, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn back to Blackwood Manor, that I was a pawn in some dark game that I didn't understand. I arrived in Hollow Creek late at night. The village was deserted, the streets empty and silent. The air was thick with the same oppressive atmosphere that I had felt before. I drove to the end of the long, overgrown driveway leading to Blackwood Manor. The house stood silhouetted against the moonlit sky, a jagged, menacing shape. I parked the car and got out, my heart pounding in my chest. I walked up the driveway, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. As I approached the house, I noticed something different. The front door was open. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the doorknob. I knew that it was a trap, that Elisa Blackwood was waiting for me inside. But I couldn't turn back. I had come too far. I had to face the darkness, even if it meant my own destruction. I stepped inside, my flashlight beam illuminating the entrance hall. It was exactly as I remembered it, vast and cavernous, filled with dust and shadows. "Welcome back, Arthur," a voice whispered from the darkness. Elisa Blackwood stepped out of the shadows, her face pale and gaunt, her eyes gleaming with malevolent glee. "I knew you would return," she said. "You can't resist the pull of Blackwood Manor. It's in your blood now." I stood my ground, my hand trembling as I pulled my EMF meter from my bag. "This ends here, Elisa," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "I won't let you trap any more souls within these walls." She laughed, a cold, mocking laugh that echoed through the house. "You think you can stop me," she said. "You're just a mortal, a weak and insignificant creature. I am a spirit, a force of nature. I am eternal." "Maybe," I said. "But I'm not afraid of you anymore." I activated my EMF meter. The needle jumped, indicating a high level of paranormal activity. "I know your weakness, Elisa," I said. "You are bound to this house, to the Black Mirror. If I destroy the mirror, I destroy you." Her eyes widened with fear. "No," she whispered. "You wouldn't dare." "I would," I said. I ran towards the staircase, determined to reach the room with the black mirror. Elisa Blackwood screamed and lunged at me, her fingers outstretched, her eyes filled with hate. I dodged her attack and continued running, taking the stairs two at a time. She pursued me, her ethereal form gliding effortlessly through the house. I reached the second floor and ran down the hallway, past the closed doors that concealed the horrors of Blackwood Manor. Elisa Blackwood was right behind me, her screams echoing in my ears. I reached the end of the hallway and threw open the door to the circular room. The room was exactly as I remembered it, lined with mirrors reflecting the room back upon itself in an endless, distorted reflection. In the center of the room stood the black mirror, its surface glowing with an eerie light. Elisa Blackwood materialized behind me, her face contorted with rage. "You can't stop me, Arthur," she screamed. "This is my domain. You are nothing here." I ignored her and ran towards the black mirror. She lunged at me again, trying to stop me, but I dodged her attack and reached the mirror. I raised my EMF meter and smashed it against the mirror with all my strength. The mirror shattered, its shards falling to the floor like black rain. As the mirror shattered, a wave of energy erupted from it, engulfing the room in a blinding light. Elisa Blackwood screamed, her form flickering and fading. "No," she screamed as she dissolved into nothing. I closed my eyes, bracing myself for the impact. When I opened my eyes, the room was silent and still. The mirrors were no longer reflecting the room. They were blank, empty. The black mirror was gone, shattered into a million pieces. I was alone. I had done it. I had destroyed the darkness that had consumed Blackwood Manor. I stood there for a long moment, catching my breath, trying to process what had just happened. Then, I heard a sound. A faint whisper, coming from behind me. I turned around slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. Standing in the doorway was a figure, a shadowy silhouette. It was a man, tall and slender, with long black hair and piercing eyes. I recognized him. He was Elias Blackwood. He smiled, a slow, chilling smile that revealed teeth that were too long, too sharp. "Thank you, Arthur," he said, his voice a whisper that seemed to echo from the depths of my soul. "You have freed me." I stared at him, my mind reeling. "Freed you?" I said. "But I thought you were the one who created the darkness." He laughed, a cold, mocking laugh that echoed through the house. "Oh, Arthur," he said. "You are so naive. I was never the one in control. I was just a puppet, a pawn in a much larger game." "What do you mean?" I said. He smiled again, his eyes gleaming with malevolent glee. "Elisa was just a distraction," he said. "She was a means to an end." "What end?" I said. He stepped closer, his eyes boring into mine. "The end of you," he whispered. He raised his hand, and a dark energy crackled around him. "You see, Arthur," he said. "Blackwood Manor is not just a haunted house. It is a gateway, a portal to another dimension. And I am the key," he said. "The key to unlocking its true power." As he touched me, I experienced the history of Blackwood Manor. But more. I experienced the truth. He was the one experimenting with the occult. He drove his wife mad. He sacrificed her. But he didn't do it to open the door, but to ensure it stayed closed, because he knew he could only truly have power if something wanted it, and she was the perfect guardian. I felt Elias Blackwood's ambition, his desire for power, his obsession with the occult. I saw his plans, his schemes, his ultimate goal. The ultimate goal was me. I was the one he needed. He wanted to use my body, my soul, to open the gateway to another dimension, to unleash the dark forces that lay dormant within Blackwood Manor. "Now, Arthur," he said. "It's time for you to fulfill your destiny." He smiled again, his eyes gleaming with malevolent glee. "It's time for you to become one with Blackwood Manor." His grip tightened, and I began to scream. But no one could hear me. I am Blackwood Manor now. And I am waiting.